Okay, so I want to point out here, this is a breakdown of a what I would term a vertical, or is that that's a horizontal grid, isn't it? Because these two lines here, top and bottom, are equal. So this is the bumpy side. So this is a horizontal grid. Okay, so here's the mathematics of a hex. So if we're measuring the distance of the red lines, every row is exactly 3/4 of an inch. It has a 1/4 of an inch overlap between the two, and then it has the rest of the distance there. Okay, so if we take our x variable going this way across the screen, and our x value, and divide it by 3/4, that automatically gives you what our column number is. Now, once we have our column number, then you have to look at rows. Okay, so at the top and bottom of this grid, you will have half a hex size offset. At the very bottom, this column here will have a half up, whereas this one will be a half down. So what we do is say, if the column is even, we add nothing to it and just divide by our height of the hex, our hex height. And then if the column is odd, such as this column and this column and this column, we have to subtract half of our hex height size to identify where the actual row is. So I've gone ahead and built this into our equation here. So we're going to calculate the row. I need the hex size. That's of paramount importance. And then we get our map point. So our map point, we're going to use X and Y and determine what row and column is. Now, we need to know what half of our hex size is in a quarter. And as we said initially, the column is calculated by map point divided by 3/4, which is a quarter plus a half, right? Jump back over here to paint.net. And so we have column 1 is 3/4, column 2 is 3/4, column 3 is 3/4. So we divide our X value, our side to side value, by 3/4. That'll identify what column. All right. So then we come back over here and say, okay, if we do a modular or modulo or however you pronounce mod, on the column that we just calculated and the number 2 and say it's 0, then we know it's even. And when it's even, let's come back to our picture. When it actually, you know what, I think I can slide this over here. So this is column 1, odd. This is column 2, it's even. So he starts at the top. Okay, so then to figure out what row we're on, if you're in a even column, then we divide by the hex size. And if it's an odd, and I can come over here and say it's odd. So then what we want to do is take our point and subtract half. This should be calculating y. Yes. So hold on, there you go. So we're going to take our y point, subtract half, which is half of our hex size, and then take the result of this mathematics and divide by our hex size. Okay, so now all we have to do is come up here and let's just grab this, and we slide back down here, and here's where we're going to do our calculation. And our hex size that we have is 64. That's set right now. We don't have a way to vary that and change the size of stuff yet. But eventually we will, so this will end up being a variable. And then we have our cursor point, and I have to send a reference to our cursor point. And if you recall from previous videos, we send an ampersand and our cursor point value, or name, excuse me. And then he'll go ahead and load these two guys for us. All right. Now, something else that's happening that I want to point out is happening because it's not real obvious when you look at things. So in PureBasic mathematics, we have an integer divided by an integer will always return an integer. Okay, so when x is less than 3/4, it's always going to return. If it's not 1, it's 0, right? If it doesn't round up, all percentages, all the in-betweens that you think of with floating point numbers doesn't exist. So this should give us coordinates of 0, 0, and then grow from there. All right, so let's see if this is going to compile, and then let's see what it's going to do. And it didn't compile. Okay, oh. Yeah, this has a singular, not multiple. All right, that's kind of a stupid mistake to make, but it would be one I would make. So, like I said earlier, compilers don't have a sense of humor. Okay, so we're going to move our cursor in right here at that edge. And look, we're at row 0, column 2. So this is row 0, column 1, row 0, 0. Okay, so let's see, this should still be reading 1. So, or I mean 0, because we haven't crossed this boundary. Okay, well, all right. So where is he? So you got to kind of mess with things a little bit because you got this in between. So if we did this right, let's see if that's 0 and this is 1. I'm curious. So you're 1 all the day long there, and then you should be 2 right here. Column, this should be row. Oh, you're hitting it halfway. I think I have this backwards. Okay, let's come over here and let's look at this. And we're going to say, oh, yes. All right, wait a minute. Let's reverse our math here. This is me. I'm sitting here telling us that this is column 1 and column 2, odd and even, where in reality this is 0 and 1. 0, believe it or not, is even because 0 divided by 2 is 0. Okay, so let's go try that again. Somehow I always have a mathematical issue that's opposite of what it should be. So that's always my first take to go change something to go see if I get it right. Okay, so now let's come in here and look at that. We're at 0, 0, anywhere north and south we want to go. And the minute we cross here, you're 0, 1, you're 0, 2, you're 0, 3, and 4. And you're 0. What about you? You're 1 and 1. Yeah, that would be 1 and 2, wouldn't it? 2 and 2 is there. Okay, check it out. We're now tracking our cursor, okay, as to exactly what location he is. So we're on a quest now to put a selected hex on our grid. All right. So the first thing that I remembered we needed to do was to convert our red hex to be the right size. Okay. Now I really don't need to do that there, and I may do it elsewhere, but for now, let's just leave it there. And so what I'm going to do is build a procedure for this. Because it may need to be being called from any number of points in the game. So let's see, let's do a select hex, and this is going to take a row and column. All right, now what I'm also going to do is give us another of these lovely image enumerators. And let's come in here and say hex select. Selected? I guess something like that. Okay. So now what we want to do is say, let's go ahead and throw in protected X and Y. Okay, so now what we're going to need to do is call this when the left click is clicked. So, and that's going to come out of view. So our function up here is select hex. We can come down here and say, alrighty, we call select hex based upon cursor point, row, and cursor point column, right? So now we're telling him that we want that selected. All right, so we're going to come up here and we're going to modify this. I don't think I want to use the point on this. Oh, I guess we could. So if we build a point object, nah, I don't want to do it that way. I'm going to have to, I think. Or I got to put this code into, yeah, we're going to need another map point. Okay, so select point, and this is going to be another map point. Not what we called that. Yes. Okay, so now we've created this. Let's come in here and set, we can set the row equals row, and we can do select point is column equals our column guy. And now we need him to figure out where's the X and Y of that. So I've done this as functions here, as procedures. I still think in terms of other languages quite frequently in my life. So my verbiage, I work hard to keep the verbiage close to PureBasic as I can. Our hex size, I broke these up because my thinking is in an overall game, these are common questions that we're going to ask. And I don't want to put this calculation code all willy-nilly all over my application. So if I think I'm going to use find me the XY based on a row and column, boy, I'm going to put it in a function. That way, if I discover that there's a better way to do it or something, then or there's God forbid, there's a oops, a code bug. Well, the code bug is, not spread all over my application. He's only in one spot. Okay, so now we call our get cell XY. We tell him that our hex size is 64, and then we have our select point variable. We're sending him a handle to that. So now he's got the XY down here, and let's see what our math is. He comes in here and he's got his point and hex size. So we derive what half and quarter is, and think back to the picture in the previous videos, and or I can bring it up here if you want. But what we have is the calculation of x. This is the reverse calculation we did earlier, where we're taking column and multiplying it by 3/4. That gets us the point of x. Okay. And then if the column is even or odd, and as I recall, that was backwards, then we add a half. So if you remember your order of multiplication, in my day it was my dear Aunt Sally, multiply, divide, add, and subtract. And so this calculation, although if you wanted to put it in parentheses, that this happens first, that's fine too. It's whatever you're most comfortable with in math. Sometimes people forget little things and they look at that and they're like, well, wait a minute, you've got a multiply and an add in here. Well, multiply happens first, then you do the add. But this takes all the guess and by golly out of it. Okay, so after this is called, our pointer, this guy here, now has X and Y filled out for us.